Welcome to today's edition of the Statler Financial Radio Show. Your financial security is our business. Have a question for the team? Call today, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, along with Philip Statler, the president and founder of Statler Financial Services. Now, with everything going on in the world right now, your finances need to be able to weather any financial storm. We have a really great show for you today. We're going to outline some of the major financial risks on the horizon today and talk about all weather strategies that could help you preserve your savings no matter what kind of storms are unfolding in the financial world. Philip, welcome to the show. I'm looking forward to what we're talking about today, the all-weather retirement strategy. What can you tell us? What can we expect?
You know, Danielle, if you think about it, we've had some really ups and downs, and in our current economic climate, there's been a few factors that are making retirement planning even more challenging than we've seen in the past. Now, people aren't really sure how to offset inflation in the future because inflation has surely skyrocketed the last couple of years, and so they aren't sure how much income Social Security is going to provide, and they aren't sure how much they can withdraw from their retirement savings. You might say that those factors combined with increasing healthcare costs and the potential, most likely, tax increases kind of makes for the perfect storm for retirees.
Philip, you're right. There's many points here I want to get across. The first point I want to walk our listeners through is that the Insured Retirement Institute surveyed that working adults that they found that many people are confused about income growth and how it's needed to offset inflation. What does this mean? What do we need to be aware about when it comes to inflation, especially around this time? It's an unpredictable time, but the survey says that many people are confused about how much income growth is needed to offset inflation. How much is needed?
Well, it kind of depends on what inflation looks like over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, right? So if you look back up until the last couple of years, we had relatively low inflation, 2-3% maybe at most. And now with all the COVID stuff that we've seen these last few years, inflation just skyrocketed. Well, here's the deal. Think about this in these terms, right? Let's just assume when you retire at 65, you're bringing down $60,000 of income. Mm-hmm. Well, and that buys so much, right? Now you can use that to buy gas, food, all the cost of living. And then you think about 10 years later, just 10 years later, to have the same ability to purchase items, you're going to need $80,000. Now, that's a huge increase over just a short time span of 10 years. That's what I'm talking about when we're talking about level income growth and what that means over an inflationary period of time.
Philip, you're right. That's just one point that we're talking about when it comes to weathering the perfect storm for retirees. You mentioned it briefly, food, right? Along with prices of food and fuel, healthcare costs in the U.S. have been also rising for decades, and they're expected to actually keep increasing. I'm sure you're familiar with this. Where's the numbers going when it comes to healthcare costs in the U.S.? What do retirees need to know?
Well, I think the healthcare costs probably, by and large, have increased significantly more than inflation has, even over these last a couple of years. And so when we're looking at different areas, I think we could kind of figure that healthcare costs, even during the lower inflationary periods of time that we've been through in the last 10, 15 years, healthcare costs increased, I'm going to guess, probably by somewhere between 6 and 8% a year when we were in an inflationary period of 2 to 3%. And that's all people saw their cost of living adjustments for Social Security increase. And so when you start looking at that, that means that health care costs continue to grow exponentially compared to our income sources. So that can be a big a big deal going forward.
That's right. And when you talk about, we mentioned it earlier, talking about income growth, there's also another report from the U.S. News and World Report saying that you need to recognize your fixed income because it may not keep up with inflation, actually. And so it kind of goes back to this is why you need a financial advisor, you need a plan. Kind of give us another just main fact here of if we don't know what to do with our retirement plan, if we're unsure if we can weather the perfect storm of inflation, healthcare costs, unsure if our fixed income is enough, what can we do during this time?
Well, I think that one of the things we need to look at in heading into retirement is to realize that Social Security it was only meant to cover a part of your continued income when you retired. Right? There was a three-legged stool way back when where Social Security made up about a third of it. Your pensions would make up a third of it. And then you were responsible for having provided for yourself about a third of your income. Now, that's obviously changed over the years because we don't have as many folks getting pensions as we used to have because they got replaced with the infamous 401ks. And so now individuals are really stuck providing for 2/3 of their own retirement income. And so it makes it even more important that we make the right decisions when it comes to when do we draw our Social Security. And the other thing that's important is that we realize how we need to allocate our portfolios prior to retirement and after retirement because they can be different. And I think that that's something that folks don't realize the changes that need to be made. And yes, Social Security checks do get an automatic adjustment for inflation. And I've seen that be anywhere from 1.2% to the highest in history was 8.7%. So, but it doesn't ever seem to be enough, Danielle, to keep up with inflation overall. And so that's why when we build our portfolios to help kind of insulate us from inflation or to take advantage of inflation, we need to make sure that we have some equities, stocks in our portfolio, maybe even a slice of real estate, commodities. I mean, all these things play a role in helping folks create that income. And that's why we created the core retirement design to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of. And part of that process is making sure that the amount of risk they have in their portfolio really matches up with the amount of risk they should have in that portfolio. The second tranche of that is to look at taxes. How can we reduce their taxes over their lifetime and their beneficiary's lifetime? And then thirdly, creating that income plan to make sure that they have a plan in place where they don't outlive their income. The best way is to give us a call at 863-877-1188. To schedule your core retirement analysis. It's simple, folks. It's a half-hour call with you and I together to determine if you are on the right path to the retirement you always dreamed of. It's a half hour, easy to do. We'll make sure that you're doing the things you need to be doing. And if not, we'll let you know and see how we may be able to help you fill in those gaps. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
Definitely take advantage of this offer. Like Philip mentioned, don't hesitate to call him and his team at 863-877-1188. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Philip, you mentioned so many key things that we need to keep in mind here. I know we keep reiterating and hitting on this point of inflation, but really nobody suffers more from high inflation than retirees. And so I think that's why we keep kind of coming back to this point here, because back in the 70s, retirees living on a fixed income were hit the hardest as prices continued to skyrocket, right? And so every year retirees get poorer. And so inflation has become a serious concern for retirees. And so I think that's why we keep coming back to this point. If you can just take us home before we head to break here and talk about what's the main thing of how we can really try to have a plan in place? What can we do to kind of pivot to make sure we are prepared in case we get hit the hardest by inflation?
Danielle, when you think about inflation, anybody on a fixed income is hurt more than anybody else when it comes to inflation. And we think of retirees because they typically are the poster child for a fixed income, right? They're the ones that their income doesn't change a lot. It is what it is. And so we think of them mostly when we start talking about this thing of inflation, because those folks that are getting a fixed income, they're affected more than anybody else when it comes to that. So when you think about it, reality is inflation never sleeps. It never stops. It just keeps on coming. It might ramp up. It might cool down. Maybe, I'm trying to remember in my lifetime if we've seen really any deflation. We've seen stagflation, and they say now we could be heading to that this year and next maybe. But we know that we have no control over inflation and what that's going to do to your retirement. So how can you help protect yourselves and your savings from that thing called inflation? And it really starts with you and I having a 30-minute conversation about where you are now and where you need to be to make sure you're on the right path to that retirement you always dreamed of. And it boils down to the core retirement design to make sure that you've designed the best possible plan to have the best opportunity for success in your retirement. And that's what it's all about. When it comes to our core retirement design, it measures the amount of risk you have in your portfolio, and it measures it against the amount of risk you should have in your portfolio based on your current circumstances. And folks, I'll tell you, I've seen people that have way more risk than they should. I've seen people that don't have near enough risk in their portfolio. Very few people. There are some that have the exact amount of risk they should have in their portfolio. Please don't think you're one of them. Come in and double check to make sure that the risk you have really and truly matches up with the risk you should have. To get started, give us a call today, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Give us a call today.
That's right. As Philip mentioned, that it doesn't hurt to triple or quadruple check your retirement plan. So don't hesitate to call Philip and the team at Statler Financial Services. They're here to guide you through a successful retirement. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Again, 863-877-1188. We have a great show for you today. We're talking about how high inflation and the possibility of higher taxes are common themes in today's economic climate. Now, one of the most important things that you can do to help preserve yourself against rising prices is to get the most out of your Social Security benefits. Well, the Statler Financial Radio Show continues right after this. We'll be right back.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan or to see if you are paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 270-201-7080. That's VISIT to 270-201-7080.
Do you actually read your financial statements, or do they get tossed in a drawer and forgotten about? You could be making an expensive mistake by not taking the time to look at them. If you're paying high fees in your retirement portfolio, it could be costing you tens of thousands of dollars or more over your lifetime. Imagine the difference an extra $100,000 could make in your retirement. Statler Financial Services can help you uncover any hidden fees in your retirement accounts. Call today to schedule a time to talk about your situation. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. When you're close to retirement, every dollar matters. Would you like to know where your money is going? Find out what kind of fees you're really paying. Statler Financial Services can help. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back into the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin. We're talking about the all-weather retirement strategy. Well, what does this mean? We're talking about how the high inflation and the possibility of higher taxes are common these days in today's economic climate. Now, one of the most important things that you can do to preserve yourself against rising prices is to get the most out of your Social Security benefits. We're back here with Philip Statler. He's the president and founder of Statler Financial Services. Philip, we're talking about another key component in this all-weather retirement income strategy. And so I kind of want to start us off with this, the Insured Retirement Institute study. It's another study that they found that most people, they don't know how much income that Social Security could provide. I know you have many years of experience in this area. Kind of break it down. What does this mean? What do retirees need to know?
Well, you're right, Danielle. People don't know what they're really going to get in Social Security. And we encourage, and actually when we start our planning process, we need to have their Social Security statement, which folks don't realize that, they used to mail out a statement, but they don't do that anymore. But you can go to ssa.gov, create an account, go online, and you can pull your own Social Security statement. It will show you exactly what you're going to get based on your current income at various ages. And so I find it interesting in that report that you quoted that, about 42% of the folks actually knew what their average Social Security benefit was going to be. And another 40% overestimated what they were going to get. Now, that can be really harmful when we start talking about income planning. And you know what I did today, Danielle, is I went and I actually pulled my own Social Security statement.
Wow.
I haven't done it in a year or two, so I thought, well, it's time. You ought to do it every year or two. And here's what I want to share with you, because I ran some numbers. I ran some percentages. Everybody wants to take it at 62.
Right.
And I get it, right? Because, well, I'm tired of working, or I'll just take it and I'll bank it. I've heard every excuse under the sun as to why they should take it at age 62. Well, here's what I want to share with you. If you take it at 62, instead of waiting until you're just 65, which is still under the normal retirement age of 67, you are giving up almost 17% of your benefit. So that is not a big number, but it's you talk about over your lifetime, right?
For sure.
That can be huge. So then I looked at another number, and this one just astonished me, to be honest. If you wait from 62 to 67, it is an astronomical 61.2% bigger benefit if you wait those 5 years. 5 years for 61% more money for the rest of your life. That's huge. And people don't think of it in those terms. They think of it as, now I need this. Maybe it's worth it to work another 5 years and get this number. This one just really floored me. Right? If you wait to age 70, 8 years. It's just 8 years. 113% more benefit than at 62. So we're talking about more than double the benefit from age 62 to age 70. That is a big increase. And so we look at these numbers when we talk about our income planning. When does it make sense for folks to take Social Security? And it does depend on a lot of things. It depends on their health and other circumstances. But people need to be more open to waiting to take their Social Security a little later, at least to their normal retirement age, Danielle.
Philip, I think, like you mentioned, that is a huge difference from where people could be in their, income versus where they can, save and scale. Because when we're talking about the all-weather retirement income strategy, in a time where you could weather the storm, you never know when that income could come in at the right time. So like you said, why not just wait a little bit longer to pull that Social Security? I appreciate you sharing that personal story. That way it gives our listeners a clear point of view of, if you did it this way, this is what it happens, this is what it means. And as we're continuing this conversation about inflation, Social Security, I want to give this other stat to you about how, like, another way that people or retirees may think that they can offset inflation is COLA, right? Also known as the cost of living adjustments. The 8.7 increase in benefits for 2023 was the largest in 40 years. This sounds like a good thing, Philip. Am I right?
I guess. I mean, it's good for folks on Social Security, but if it went up 8.7%, that is an indication that inflation was really high the year before. And so that's not a good thing, right? I mean, it's good that Social Security goes up. And, several years, I don't remember the years now, but maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, they changed the measurement of how they determined what the COLA was for Social Security benefits. They started using a different index instead of the original one they started with. And so that's made a difference as well. But there's some years that they've gotten 1.2, 1.4%. So yes, it does help keep up with inflation, but it's not near enough, right? Because Social Security is only meant to be about 40% of your working wage when you're working. And so, you still have 60% to make up from somewhere. And then I guess that's really why I believe the core retirement design really helps people look at that and determine where they need to be, what they need to adjust to get to that point. And so I offer a 30-minute phone conversation for us to discuss where you are, where you need to be, and what you need to do to get there. Give us a call at 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis. It's simple, folks. It's a half-hour call with you and I together to determine if you are on the right path to the retirement you always dreamed of. It's a half hour, easy to do. We'll make sure that you're doing the things you need to be doing. And if not, we'll let you know and see how we may be able to help you fill in those gaps. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
I know this is a time that many people have questions about this and many things, especially in an unpredictable season of inflation. We just came a couple years ago from the pandemic, but still people feel a little confident, but a little fearful of what to expect. And so if you are one of those people that have questions about your plan, you need someone to overlook it, don't hesitate to call us at 863-877-1188. Again, 863-877-1188. We're talking again about inflation, Social Security, kind of getting the most out of our benefits. What would you say is the best way to get the most out of your Social Security benefit as being the most important part of our all-weather retirement income strategy? That's what we're calling it today.
Well, I think we need to remember that Social Security is a reliable source of income, that it's going to continue to pay you no matter what happens in the economy. And I sit down with folks sometimes and they want to rain on the parade, right? They want to complain about Social Security. And I looked at some numbers. Again, I pulled my own Social Security statement. During my lifetime, I've paid in, between me and my employer, a little over $180,000 towards Social Security. But if I retire at 67 and I live 25 years, which there's a good possibility with the genes that are in my bloodline, my grandmother living to 100, I would collect over $900,000. Now, folks, that's a pretty good return on that money. And as much as Social Security gets bashed, it does serve a great purpose. But I think that's one thing we need to realize. It is reliable. The other thing is that if you overestimate what your benefit's going to be when you start planning your retirement, folks, that can be devastating. Because if it's more than what you think it's going to be, or less than what you think it's going to be, then that means you got a bigger gap that you got to cover to make sure that your Social Security and whatever other income you have gives you enough income to to live out the rest of your life. And so there are things there that we need to be aware of. And a lot of times we need to look at waiting. If you don't need the money, if you're still working, if you love what you're doing, don't take Social Security early. At age 70, you get an additional 32%. Basically, from age 67 to age 70, you get a 32% raise by waiting. If you're still working, it may make sense to do that, Danielle.
Philip, you're right. It sounds like a lot of people are like, I don't want to continue, working. But in the end, like you said, waiting is honestly going to benefit you. This allows your benefit to really accumulate delayed retirement credits. It's a good thing. And so one of the most important things that you could do to really help protect yourself against rising prices is really to get the most out of your benefits. And so this kind of really reminds me why we need to have a financial advisor by our side, someone like you, Philip, to remind us, hey, this is a better strategy for you. We may think we know what's best for us, but we really don't sometimes, and kind of give us just like some tough love here and why it's important to just have a financial advisor by your side along the way throughout your retirement.
We don't want to be an ostrich, Danielle. We don't want to stick our head in the sand and not realize what's going to happen, right?
Right.
Folks, I encourage you, get a copy of your Social Security statement. Go to ssa.gov. I don't get paid to say that, but that is an area that you can pull down your statement and see where you are. Folks, unfortunately, many people don't know how much income Social Security is going to provide them. Like the Insurance Retirement Institute found that only 42% of workers correctly identified the average Social Security benefit they were going to receive. And 40% of the folks overestimated the amount of Social Security they were going to get in retirement. Folks, that is disaster waiting to happen. Don't be that person. Know what your Social Security benefit is going to be and know how to use it properly. That's why I developed the Core Retirement Design. The third leg of that is to really put together that income plan so that you know and are confident where your income's coming from and how long it's going to last under the current circumstances. And we'll make sure you're on the path to the retirement you always dreamed of. To get started, give us a call today, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Give us a call today.
An all-weather retirement income strategy is designed to help you be able to get the income that you need in retirement, whether the economy is growing or pulling back. Because regardless of what's happening with inflation, taxes, or the economy, you will still need income in retirement. We're going to continue this conversation coming up on the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be right back.
It might ramp up or it could slow down, but inflation never goes away. Do you know how it could impact your retirement savings? Text VISIT to 863-877-1188. That's VISIT to 863-877-1188.
It's nice when you get everything on your list in one place, isn't it? Philip Statler at Statler Financial Services agrees. That's why he offers comprehensive retirement planning all under one roof. You shouldn't have to go one place for information about tax planning, another for estate planning, and another for retirement income planning. That's why Statler Financial Services was started. Philip wanted to build a company that could help families with all aspects of their retirement. Statler Financial is more than just convenient, they're knowledgeable and experienced. To set up a meeting with Philip Statler and his team to talk about your retirement plan, all of it, call 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, one stop for a wealth of retirement solutions. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
I want to help you understand some things. Number one, timing of your RMD, because they could potentially push you into a higher tax bracket. Imagine how fast your savings could shrink if you rack up penalties along with taking regular withdrawals and paying taxes.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back into the show on the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin. We're talking about the all-weather retirement income strategy and how it's designed to help you be able to get the income that you need in retirement, whether the economy is growing or pulling back. Because regardless of what's happening with inflation, taxes, or the economy, you will need income in retirement. Another best way that you can guarantee some income is a tax-efficient way to access your retirement savings. It's another key component moving on into this all-weather retirement income strategy. Philip, now we're moving into this tax strategy. What do we need to know? What's the most important thing that maybe retirees are not aware of right now?
You know, Danielle, everyone knows that they're going to need income from somewhere in retirement. I mean, you don't just get to quit working and live off the land. I mean, some people maybe can do that, but this boy couldn't. So with that, the problem is that many people don't know enough about withdrawing money from their retirement accounts or what all their options are for income in retirement. And these are important things that people understand when they get ready to retire.
Philip, you're right. I think looking at this survey that I have for you, you just kind of took the words out of my mouth. It's that the Insured Retirement Institute conducted a study finding that retirement withdrawal rates are a mystery to many people. I'm curious why it's a mystery. It sounds like we don't know what to do. So I'm glad that we could talk about this on the show today. What do we need to know about withdrawal rates?
Well, when we talk about withdrawal rates, that is, just so people understand, that is the percentage of money you could pull out of your account and it still lasts over your lifetime. And so, you know, you may have heard the rule 4%. You could take out 4%. Back when interest rates were higher and things were going good, they used to say you could draw out 5%. The rules have kind of been a moving target. In 2008, when we had the major bear market and the real estate collapse, back then they had studies come out after that time period that said, look, if you want to be sure that you can have a portfolio in, 25, 30 years of living, then really you need to reduce your withdrawal rate to somewhere around 2.8 to 3.2%. That's a way far off from the 4% or 5% they used to use. And so I think it's a case of not so much what is that percentage, but do you have a plan? Do you have a written plan that is conservative in nature? Because if it's conservative in nature and the world does better, then you're better off. But if things are bad, then the conservative portfolio should hold up no matter what when we talk about withdrawal strategies. And so as part of our core retirement design, we focus on that third leg of income planning. And we want to make sure that the amount we're pulling out isn't going to punch a hole in your portfolio. And all of a sudden, 20 years down the road, you're wondering if you're going to have enough to last another 10 years. We don't want anybody to be in that situation because I've seen it. I've seen people come into my office that are in that boat. It's not fun. It's hurtful. And I don't want to see anybody in that boat. And so that's why I really developed this core retirement design. And folks, we don't want anybody to run out of money. So that's why I believe you need to have a map to run on. And that for us is our core retirement design.
And we'll dive into too, like what you're going to get into that and how you can contact Philip and his team. Because Philip, you mentioned something key here of we don't want people to run out of money. And there's many ways that we can do that without having an advisor or someone near us to say, hey, there's a gap here. There's a hole. And so another area that we tend to overlook is taxes. People tend to overlook taxes when they're planning their withdrawals from their retirement accounts. And I think people assume that taxes will be lower when they leave the workforce. But that's not always the case.
It's not. Danielle, you're so right. And I see it all the time where folks are actually in a higher tax bracket when they retire than what they were when they were working. And so the whole theory of, tax deferral over the last 40 years has, I wouldn't say backfired, but it sure isn't what everybody bought into back then. And so it is something we need to be aware of. Ed Slott says, that when you have an IRA or 401k, you have a partner, you have a mortgage on that account. The problem is you don't know what the payment's going to be or what the partner's share is going to be until you file your tax return, right? And so maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 0, maybe it's 40%. Depends upon what income tax bracket you're in. But understand that your IRA, your 401k is not all your money. When you take money out, Uncle Sam's sitting there with his hands wide open, wanting his share of that money. And so we need to understand that when we start looking at our retirement accounts and our income distributions and those type of things.
That's right. And Philip, there's many things and many questions that we have when it comes to our retirement plan. We talked about Social Security, and I want to kind of bring that back up here, how some people who delay Social Security until age 70 then have to start taking money from their retirement savings at age 73. They could be pushed into a higher tax bracket, like you just mentioned. So this is what also some analysts call the tax torpedo. Can you dive into this a little bit, what this means and how this may or may not affect some retirees?
Absolutely, Danielle. So here's the deal. At 70, right, you got to start taking Social Security, whether you want to or not. I mean, you might as well take it because there's no benefit to wait. So now you're getting the highest Social Security you can get, which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. That is a very good thing. I encourage people that can do that to do it. However, we come along to age 73 now, and now we got to start taking our required minimum distributions out of our retirement accounts. And so that gets added to our income. And now, and this is a misnomer, a lot of people think, well, that's my Social Security. It's not taxable. Not true. Your Social Security may be taxable depending upon how much income you get from other sources. It can be as much as 85% of your Social Security can be taxable. And so that's where folks get into this tax torpedo, because all of a sudden your income really didn't change. But now all of a sudden you got a bigger tax bill because so much of your Social Security is being taxable because of that required minimum distribution. So we try to put together some strategies to help reduce that before we get to that age 73. Again, that's part of our core retirement design. Where second leg of that is to really dive into tax problems. What can we do to resolve and reduce our taxes in retirement, whether that's Roth conversions or other avenues that we can reduce tax early, pay tax early, get ourselves in a lower tax bracket. Again, if you're interested in that and that's something that you're concerned about, please give us a call, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Where we'll talk about Roth conversions and what that means to you and how that might save you and your family a lot of money down the road.
There's no cost. There's no obligation. We definitely encourage you to call Philip and his team at 863-877-1188. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Philip, as we're on the topic of taxes, I want to continue this conversation about how today's federal income tax rates might be the lowest that you'll see for the rest of your life. I know that's right. So after tax rates went down with the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, those tax rates expire come 2026. That's like around the corner. I don't know about you, but the time is moving today. And so at this point, it's not a matter of if, but when taxes will go up. So if we can briefly have this conversation of how can we prepare, what can we do right now that could help for our future plan in retirement?
Well, I think that when we look at that, Danielle, you're right. I mean, taxes are automatically going to go up in 2026 if Congress doesn't do something. And believe me, with the Congress we have today, I doubt very seriously anything will get accomplished when it comes to taxes. So they're automatically going to sunset. They're automatically going to go up to what they were before the Tax Cut and Jobs Cut Act, better known as the Trump tax cuts. But so we know they're going to go up. And I believe that we are probably in the lowest tax brackets that you and I will ever see. They really have no way to go but up from this point. So folks, listen, I don't want you to assume that you won't be impacted by the Democrats' proposed tax increases because you're not a big corporation or you're not, quote, wealthy enough to be in that boat. I bet just everyone listening has a few areas where they can become a little bit more tax efficient with their retirement savings. Because here's the deal. Taxes, to get to where we need to be, you can't just tax the wealthy. Debt is astronomical. And so we're going to see that promised, wealthy people is going to end up sinking down to everyday folks. Believe me, that's the only way to start paying back some of this debt. Folks, all of this we look at when we talk about our core retirement design. Risk is one leg, taxes and income. Those are three major components when it comes to retirement planning. Give me a call at 863-877-1188 to schedule your no cost, no obligation core retirement analysis. It's you and I on the phone, 30 minutes, answering your questions and making sure that you are on the right path to that retirement you always dreamed of. It's that simple, folks. It's 30 minutes. You don't have to leave your house. You don't have to leave your car at this point with cell phones, right? You can call us. We'll schedule an appointment to make sure that you are on the right path. Give me a call today at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
Like Philip mentioned, you don't have to go anywhere. You can simply give him a call from wherever you are, from your car, on your walk, walking your dog. All you have to do is dial the number 863-877-1188. Again, 863-877-1188. Now, economic pressures like inflation, possible tax increases, and a lack of financial knowledge, these factors mean a lot of people are worried if they'll be able to afford to retire. But we can't predict where the economy will go from here. So that's why it's important to create an all-weather retirement income strategy that can handle any and all economic conditions. We're going to continue this conversation coming up right after the break. We'll see you soon.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan or to see if you are paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 270-201-7080. That's VISIT to 270-201-7080.
Do you actually read your financial statements, or do they get tossed in a drawer and forgotten about? You could be making an expensive mistake by not taking the time to look at them. If you're paying high fees in your retirement portfolio, it could be costing you tens of thousands of dollars or more over your lifetime. Imagine the difference an extra $100,000 could make in your retirement. Statler Financial Services can help you uncover any hidden fees in your retirement accounts. Call today to schedule a time to talk about your situation. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. When you're close to retirement, every dollar matters. Would you like to know where your money is going? Find out what kind of fees you're really paying. Statler Financial Services can help. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Welcome back into the Statler Financial Radio Show. We're continuing the conversation about an all-weather retirement income strategy. So as I mentioned before, economic pressures like inflation, possible tax increases, and a lack of financial knowledge. These factors mean a lot of people are worried if they'll be able to afford to retire. But we can't predict where the economy will go from here. So that's why it's really important to create an all-weather retirement income strategy that can handle all different economic conditions. Philip Statler is here with the Statler Financial Services. Philip, we're continuing this conversation about this all-weather retirement income strategy. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this? Why is this so important today?
Well, if you think about it, Danielle, if you're worried about being able to retire, if things like volatility and inflation and tax increases, but if they keep you up at night, that means you probably don't have a plan. and you might not be working with the right type of financial professional who can help you develop that income strategy that can weather any financial storm on the horizon.
And Philip, I want to make it plain and simple for our listeners today. I want to make sure they know and have clarity on what all goes into this strategy that we're talking about to make sure that for any economic conditions, we have a strategy and a plan in place. Kind of talk about several key components that all go into this strategy.
Absolutely, Danielle. So there are 5 or 6 different things we look at when it comes to creating this income strategy. One, we need to understand time horizons. How soon do you retire? We need to determine your spending needs. What's your budget look like? And don't forget to make your financial calculations as after-tax calculations, because taxes are going to play a big role. We need to look at risk tolerance versus financial goals. And we have to keep everything up to date, Danielle. We can't just set it and forget it.
You're right. We can't just put it down and then not look at it for a couple of years, right? And so I like all of the things that you mentioned. You talked about time horizon, spending needs, financial calculations, risk tolerance, keeping everything up to date. I love all of this. Let's go even deeper. Can we break this down kind of component by component to make sure that we have clear understanding of what each means?
Sure, I can do that. So let's look at that. So the first thing we look at is understand your time horizons. So where are you at in that time scale of when are you going to retire? Because you have a time period before you retire, and then you have the time period after you retire. And so we need to know where you are on that timeline. And from there, we can put together, right? How long do you expect to live? When do you plan on retiring? What age are you going to be? Obviously we don't know when we're going to pass away, but we have some idea what life expectancy is based on your family history. But I will tell you, I build every plan out to age 100 because there is statistically a chance that you or your spouse will live to 100. And so that I don't want to shortchange anybody and run out of money a little early. And then the next one's a big one, Danielle. Nobody likes this one. It's no fun.
Right.
But you need to determine your budget. You need to know how much are you going to need to spend. What are you going to want to spend in retirement? And I don't want somebody to give me this ultra conservative number. Oh, I think I can get by on this. No, because that's failure. We will fail. You will fail if that's the position we take going into planning. We want to be realistic about what that number is. Now, I may have to come back and say, well, that may be realistic, but it's unrealistic based on what you've saved. And we'll have to have that hard discussion, and I'm not afraid to do that. And we don't want to forget inflation when we start talking about spending. So that's, we got to put together a realistic budget. And then the third thing is the tax man is there. You need to understand that, you're going to lose part of your retirement money every time you take money out to Uncle Sam. He's going to take a share, whether that's 10% or 20% or whatever it is. It's money you don't get to spend. And so we have to take that into consideration. And then the fourth thing and I think this is really important, it goes to my core retirement design, is assessing how much risk you're comfortable with and making sure that it lines up with your current portfolio and your goals. 2 different things we need to look at there to make sure that that we've got the level of risk dialed in properly. And then lastly, we can't set it and forget it. We have to look at it, if not every year, every other year. You need to take a look at it to make sure that your income plan is working. More importantly, we need to look at some other things too, Danielle. We need to look at your beneficiaries on your retirement accounts. We need to look at, your legal documents to make sure that if things change within your family dynamics, that we've got those things updated for you. And so those are things that we need to make sure that we look at on a regular basis when it comes to income planning, retirement planning as a whole. we consider ourselves retirement coaches, and we want to be there to help coach you through that process. And again, Daniel, that's why I created the core retirement design. It's to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of. It's 30 minutes, you and I on a phone call, making sure that you are where you need to be. And if not, how can we get you there? Give me a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
As a reminder, there's no cost or obligation. All you have to do is simply call 863-877-1188. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Philip and his team will definitely take care of you. Philip, I appreciate you taking the time to break down each of the 5 key components that we just listed off here, talking about time horizon, spending needs, financial calculations after tax, right? Making sure that we're not in any risk with our financial goals and keeping everything up to date. I love all of these 5 components that you listed and how detailed you went into them, because I think not many financial advisors do this. Everyone's different. And I think if you've been working with a financial a professional for a while, they might not be the right fit for you during different stages of life. And I'm sure you've had many clients come to you and talk with you about, the experiences that they've had with other financial professionals. Can you kind of let us know, how do you know if a financial advisor is right fit for you?
Well, Danielle, it is important to work with someone who can help you with the financial advice for the stage of life you're in. When you're preparing or you get ready to go into retirement, you need to have somebody that's their main focus, because it's different. When you're working and you're accumulating money, that's a different mindset, it's a different philosophy, it's a different process than when you get ready to retire. The whole thing changes. And if you're not working with somebody that's what they do day in and day out, then it can cause a problem. You may not end up with the results you wanted to. You want to work with somebody that has some independence. They can do what's best for you, not for the company store, so to speak. And so that's what we want to do. And that's what I encourage people to do, to find somebody that has your best interest at heart. Folks, we want you to have a map to go by. The best way is to give us a call at 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis. It's simple, folks. It's a half-hour call with you and I together to determine if you are on the right path to the retirement you always dreamed of. It's a half hour, easy to do. We'll make sure that you're doing the things you need to be doing. And if not, we'll let you know and see how we may be able to help you fill in those gaps. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
If you have any questions about retirement, don't hesitate to call Philip and the team at Statler Financial Services. They're here to guide you through a successful retirement. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. Again, 863-877-1188. You are listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk with you next week.
Information provided during the Statler Financial Radio Show is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No strategy is guaranteed to be successful.
This radio show is a paid placement.